Happy spring. It's great to be back. Kyle and I here again today, and another episode that we hope will resonate with folks and give you guys something to think about. And today we want to talk about, what is it like to be around you? What is it like to work with you or work for you? And some self-reflection talk today, and some self-reflection on probably the part of both Kyle and I too, as we work through this alongside you. So we want to talk today about, it goes back to the core concept that we talk about a lot, about being authentic and being genuine. And part of that is not just you doing the work, but it's what do people think of you? How do you show up, and are you showing up the way in which you intend to? Because that's where real authenticity comes in. So today we want to talk about, what's it like to work with you? And do you know that? And what's it like to live with you? And do you know that? And it's all important. All of it's so important. And we spend so much time thinking about our skills and our abilities and what we're doing right and what we need to work on. But do we really step back and think, when I walk into a room, do people feel relieved? Do people feel comfortable? Or do people get quiet? And there's so much that goes into the dynamics of that. And we just want to start to unpack that today. So, Kyle, what you think about it? Are you ready? Are you nervous?
It's a deep one, right? And I think I would make the argument that most people don't know, what others think about them. And I think it's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in, to actually go and learn what that is, or figure out what that is, or have the conversations with people who are willing to be 100% completely honest with you and tell you. So it's just one of those things. Best you can examine it without any outside conversations. What can you see? What can you look for to kind of get a pulse on generally what people think of you, and think of your leadership or your abilities? But yeah, I think my biggest argument would be that I don't think most people know. I think they, and I could say that because I was there too, and sometimes maybe I still don't know everybody. I have a general idea in many different environments of my life, not just work, and it's just crazy how it's different in different environments too. And maybe that's something we'll get into, but it's one of those things. I think it's going to be the sole thing that's going to make you an extremely capable and great leader, is knowing what your people think about you and knowing what your team thinks about you when it comes to skills, when it comes to abilities, when it comes to, emotional intelligence and all these things. And I think if we look at cues and actually use those cues to guide us, I think we can make some growth without even having to pursue those harder conversations that in essence would be like the gold standard, right? Have the conversations if you're willing, but if not, what cues can I take away to kind of give an idea of what people think about me? I think one of the biggest things too is, this is an area that I see a lot of people will get defensive extremely quickly over. So if we are examining something, it's easy to push the blame onto somebody else or something else, or blame that person as the problem because of what they said about you. And we have to shut that down right now. Right now. Like, if you're going to go down this, you have to shut that down and not point a finger or blame anybody else on this. It is all about reflection, and because we are not who we think we are. We are what everybody else thinks we are and sees in us, whether it's our strengths or our weaknesses. So if you really want real, truthful answers, it's not going to be coming from your own mind. It's going to be coming from those around you that you're around regularly, what they think of you, and all this stuff. So it's really one of those areas that needs to be pursued, and I think would pay dividends in the long run in anybody's leadership ability.
Yeah, and I think this is probably pretty counterculture.
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah, for sure.
Right now we live in such a world, and I hear so many people, and very famous people too. Like, I hear people say, other people, like Rachel Hollis will say this, and I love Rachel Hollis. She's, a kind of a personal development type person, books and speaker. But she says a lot of times, other people's opinions of me is none of my business. And I think in so many aspects, like maybe in your personal life, you can't get caught up in, being so worried about what people think of you that you can't move. But in a leadership place and in particularly in influence, when you're worried about, or not just worried about, but like the importance of your influence, it is important what people think of you, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
people think negatively about you, they're not going to follow you, and you're not going to have the influence, which is your goal, right? It's not a goal to scare people into coming along. It's a goal to use a leadership style that brings people along with you, and they want to follow you, and you have this positive influence on people in so many aspects of their life, not just at work, right? But you can influence people in your personal life. You can influence people at work in their own personal lives. But I hear so many people say, well, I just don't give a crap what they think about me, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to railroad them because I just don't give a crap. They can like me or not like me, but they're going to do this or they're going to do that. And it's, how's that working? Right? If
Yeah.
that's your style, how's that working for you? Because I have spent so much of my time of my life on the opposite end, so worried about what people thought of me, almost to a detriment, where, I feel like I have a nice balance now, but I look at people like that and I'm like, do you feel that way because people have some negative connotation about you? So that's your defense mechanism, right? Are you using that as a crux to say, I don't want to know because I know it's going to be bad. So you just
Yeah.
say, screw it. I don't care what you say. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to just hard charge forward, and come along or don't. I don't give a crap, which that's not my style. So I don't know how to do that. That's not my
Yeah.
style, but I do see people like that. And, how do we help folks, maybe try something different? Like, hey, maybe try a softer approach and find out what it is that's bothering someone about, what is bothering someone about you that way. That's hard to say. But like, I, I feel like I want to convince those people the most to hear our message.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you talk about defenses real quick. I think the other defense that you see, and if you're one of these people, especially in the fire service, there's a lot of places that will sit around a table all day and talk about other people. And if that's happening, that's a level of insecurity, and they're deflecting away from their own weaknesses. And so if you see that, or if you are that person, like, here's your warning sign, like, it's you. It's not anybody else around you. And I think we see that a lot, not just in our industry, but everywhere. I think that's a quick deflection. It's an insecurity, and maybe we just haven't realized it ourselves yet. So that's a big one when I look at defensiveness in terms of what people think about me. And then I think, when we look at the fire service, or you look at military, first responder world, this question, what people think about you, is, I think, a lot broader in terms of, there's the tactical side, there is outgoing and doing our job, the risk that we're willing to take, the trust in your leaders on a fire ground. And then again, as we talk about, there's the four walls of the firehouse as well. You could have that person, go up to your crew. Do you trust me getting you home back to your family tomorrow? Do you trust me to take a higher level of risk? And we all could think in our organizations of people you'd say yes to that to, and people you'd say no to that to. And then on the flip side, in the four walls of the firehouse, is this someone who is going to mentor me, who is going to help me grow? Is this someone that is going to have the hard conversations with me and all these things? Sometimes, as people in leadership roles, they're only good at one of those. And then the real great leaders are great at both of those, where they can turn it on and off and know where it's at. So it's like those simple questions, off the top of our head, we can sit here right now and tell you, if you're a boss somewhere and anywhere, go to your crews tomorrow and ask this question. Do you think I could pull you out of a fire? Do you think I'm going to keep you safe? Are they going to honestly answer you, or is it going to be an extremely intimidating environment? Probably intimidating. B, but that there's the starting point, because that's an easier conversation, I think, for a lot of people in our industry to have. If we relate it to the job first, it starts to open the door. So it opens the door into the other side of mentorship and coaching and all these things to where I can start having the harder conversations. But if I go in initially and just look at job, nothing else, not the emotional side, not in the four walls, but performance and job, do you trust me in these instances? I think is a great opening and a less intimidating door maybe for a lot of people to go through, especially in our industry, because that's a conversation I think a lot of people are willing to have. And I've heard that through my career. Like, you've heard, I don't trust that person, leading us into this or that person. Like, that's the one thing you constantly hear. We don't hear about the other side as much, the emotional intelligence side and things, because there's just not a lot of, I don't know, background or education or willingness to go down those roads. But when it comes to job performance and trust there, a lot of people are always talking about that.
I don't know. I almost think like whatever you're worse at is the thing you're not going to ask about.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think if your performance is not there, but you take good care of your people, you'd be less likely to ask about that. So you'd be
yeah,
like, I'm not going to ask if you think I'm, I can command a fire or I can whatever. And even if you're not in the fire service, like if your technical ability at your job is lacking a bit, but you're a super good dude, like
yeah,
that might be what's harder to ask about. But to me too, I would encourage you to think about, are you consistent in any aspect? Because I see folks that struggle with their people because they're so inconsistent. Like when they're good. But when they're having a day and they're not showing up, it's a train wreck. And so people
yeah,
don't know who's going to show up. So you know, they don't trust them. And it's, to me, it's think about your consistency and if there's a gap there. So if you're good and you're good, if you're good when you're good, but you've got some days where whatever's going on and you're off your game, like what could you do in your life to counter that? Like, is it when you're not getting enough sleep? Is it you're not taking care of your body? Is it home life stuff? Whatever it is, like, or you're getting burned out, and so some days you're just not feeling it. Like what are some things, and you have to, that's personal work, right? And that's why we're having
yeah,
these conversations. Is Kyle and Kerry can't answer that for you. That's you personally.
right.
Like do some journaling, do some work. Like what do I need to do so that I am consistent? Because that is so important to your people, is that you're consistent, because they need to depend on that, right? Because if they're not sure of themselves or they're looking to you for this leadership stuff and you're not consistent, that is kind of for me the first breakdown in that. So ask your people, like, am I consistent? And they go, well, some days. Like there's your answer, right?
Yeah,
And I also think too, are you approachable? Like if your people have a thing, if they've got a thing going on, can they come to you? Like, is it, if they've got performance issues, are they comfortable saying, coming to you and saying, I'm not comfortable doing this skill or whatever. Can you help me? Or would you turn it right around and go, well, why aren't you? Like, we've worked on that. Not approachable, right? Or if they've got a personal issue going on, can they approach you? Because I see so many folks in the fire service, and we've talked about this before. They're like, mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. Hey, boss, I need to go to some therapy. Why do you need to do that?
yeah,
Why would you? I can't give you time off for that. That's not
yeah,
covered. That no, you can't preach accountability or can't preach mental health and then act like that, right? So I think it's consistency and being approachable. I think are two main takeaways for our listeners. Like that's two easy things. Like I think you could ask, like, am I consistent? Do you feel comfortable approaching me? And in both of those categories, give me some feedback about my consistency and give me some feedback about my approachability, because I think for everyone you're approachable in some arenas but not others,
hmm,
right? So I think I'm approachable, for the very human side of things. I do have a tough time when people are not performing to expectations, like, and they come to me. I do feel like I'm not as approachable there, and that's just self-reflection on my part. And I try to be a lot more, give a lot more grace there. I give a lot of grace in like all the personal stuff. The other stuff I'm working on that. So we all got stuff to work on.
Yeah. And it's a fine line, right? Because standards are important in our job. So it's
Yes,
like
yes.
one of those things, like, yeah, there's no easy recipe for all this, but I want to talk about, and continue kind of the conversation on approachability, because I think that is like one of the biggest things. I think in past, and this may be why, because I think I could say I'm the same way in some ways, especially in performance based and things of that nature. I think historically, and you look back on our industry, that being that tough person or the unapproachable person was a badge of honor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like to be tough and scary,
And
right?
scary. I was going to say, and scary. Yes,
Scare the new
absolutely.
people, like that's what we're supposed to do. But then on
Yeah.
the
Or like,
and then
oh,
we
they
get in
think
the
I'm
brotherhood.
intimidating.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
like good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I used to think that, absolutely, and to this day I probably could say that some still feel I'm intimidating. Cool, I try again, something I'm working on, but I think we need to move on from being intimidating and hardcore and as a badge of honor. We still can have extremely high standards and have extremely high expectations of our people. We don't need to be a jerk about it. We don't need to have this chip on our shoulder that I've been there, done that, that I'm senior and, I'm all salty and all that. Like, we need to move on from that. But that does not mean we're lowering standards
Yeah.
or that those two don't equate. Just because this does not mean that we're going to lower standards automatically. You want to be the person that people go to and want to go to because of what you bring to the table. In terms, and if you're too intimidating for that, then it's not going to happen. And I think with the newer people coming in today, and this might be an approach for you. In your organization, you're going to have to examine who you could have conversations with. And this is if you're a boss. And even if you're not a boss, and you're a few years on or you're 10 years on, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, go to somebody. Let's just say you're a company officer. Go to your crew. And you might not want to do it in public, because in a public environment, that might be more intimidating. But pull people aside one by one and have a conversation. Be like, look, you are not going to get in trouble for anything you say. I really want to know what you think of me. Put it out there. You're not getting in trouble. You want to, in Illinois, you want a union rep to sit in? Cool. Don't care. I'm not going to write anything down. Nothing. I want to know what you think of me. And don't be afraid to follow it up with, once they spill their guts, how can you help me change that? Even if it's a junior person, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's where vulnerability matters and putting yourself out there. I'm not going to say they have all the answers, but give them some ownership in your growth as well. Everybody can help everybody grow, right? It doesn't matter how many years you got on or how, none of that stuff. So have those conversations. And I think initially a one-on-one with people, especially if you do come off intimidating, and especially if you know that people think you're intimidating. And if you are that person, you already know, like, already. So I think that's a great place to start, is having those one-on-ones with your people. And let's just say you're a 3-year firefighter or a 3-year person on or a 6-year, doesn't matter. Like, go to your peers, go to your junior peers, go to your senior peers, go to your company officer. I mean, these things should be happening in, personnel evaluations, and all that on your annual. But hey, it doesn't have to. Like, hey, I know I've been here for 2 years. Where do you think I'm at? Like, what do I need to be doing? You know, can you help me here or this or that? Like, go have those, go seek it yourself. And the earlier you start that in your career, I think the more beneficial it's going to be. And you could take all that information from everybody around you on where you're at, and you're going to get a great look at where your strengths and weaknesses are. And as a probationary or a newer firefighter, like, if you go around doing that, I think that your career is going to go very well. And, the stuff that we're talking about right now is just going to be normal. Like, it doesn't need to be learned in a podcast episode. It's just going to be
Yeah.
your normal. Like, you're going to want people to know it's okay for them to speak up to you, like in private, not public. And then you just grow that culture over time. And then before you know it, you're a boss, you're a company officer, but everybody, now you can sit around the table and have these conversations openly. But the end goal, right? I think we have to keep in the back of our minds, the end goal of all of this is improvement. It's for professional development. It's for growth. It's for working together. It's for building teamwork. Like, this is how it's done. It's not done any other way. So we have to have that level of vulnerability to where we can have these discussions and not get defensive and seek the help to work on those weaknesses that we have.
Yeah, and I think there was some part of wanting to be intimidating that I think wasn't all malice, but I think
Yeah.
it was confusion. It was, I want to be respected,
Yeah.
right? But there was this confusion over, if somebody thinks I'm intimidating, then they must respect me. Well, that's muddy. That's a little bit
Yeah.
muddy. So if we could replace that with, I would like to be respected.
Yeah.
Because of my technical ability, the way I carry myself, and because I'm approachable and consistent and all of those things. I think then in that aspect, it can be okay. And I feel like the younger generation, their goal is not to be intimidating. Their
Yeah.
goal is those other things. And so maybe we're just preaching to ourselves or to
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
our generation of people, right? Which is okay too. Like, right? All kinds of kinds, and everybody, we have so many different listeners out there, but I feel like, if your approach is, I want to be well respected, I want to be approachable, I want to be consistent, I want to be vulnerable where it's appropriate, and your suggestion of, you got to ask the people, you got to ask them, and you've got to be willing to, even if it's unsolicited advice that you're getting, like in your annual eval, like if you've got a supervisor that is not comfortable regularly giving you feedback and is only giving you feedback during your annual evaluation, that is a tough place to get it, because it can be a blind side, right? You can be totally blindsided by something, but I encourage you to do something with it, because I see so many people get evals from supervisors that aren't comfortable doing the stuff we're talking about, right? Because it's hard. And then the only place they know to do it is in an annual evaluation. And you get it all of a sudden. And you're like, no one's ever said that to me before. Okay, I got to figure out how to do something with this information. I've got to take a step back. I got to take a deep breath. I don't know what I need to do, take a Xanax or something, but like, you've got to figure out what to do with that information, because buried in there somewhere is some truth, right? And I feel like I see so many people get evals and they've got negative stuff in there, and they're like, well, no one's ever told me that. It can't be true. Like, it's them, not me. Well, something made them write that. So have more conversations, take some of it to heart, really do some soul searching into why would this person feel this way, and write it in my annual eval. Like, what can I do about this information? And that's so hard if that's the only way you're getting feedback. So, like Kyle said, regular feedback, regular feedback, regular feedback. But sometimes if you have someone you're working for that is not comfortable in that, this is just some guidance for that arena.
Yeah, I think, when we look at like how people see us and what they think of us, it's very hard to do on your own, right? There's some things we can do to have a general idea. And I think if you don't even need to go deep here, right? You just could simply just ask yourself, I wonder what people think about me, and just go through the list of people you work with or in these groups. And I think in most cases, you should be pretty close to if you're maybe not. It depends how big your ego is, I guess. What you actually think people think of you. But I think if you just examine that, like right now, you just examine maybe your crew or just pick a group and you go through down that list. Do you generally have an idea of what you think people think of you? And I would hope maybe you have a general idea. I don't know. That's a tough one. Now
For
that
me, it differs. Like, it differs on who the person is. Because I
yeah.
think some people think very highly of me, and I think there are some people that have, a different opinion of me. And I think it just depends on other people's stuff too, right? Because everybody's
Yeah.
got something. So, like, other people's insecurities may reflect on how they feel on me, about me.
Yeah.
And, I think that really, really comes into it. So sometimes I have to think to myself, like, this person's maybe treating me this way and feels this way about me, and maybe it doesn't have anything to do about with me. Like, it is just their insecurities, but at the same time, that affects the relationship.
Yeah.
So it's still, if I'm the only one that can see it, then it to me, it is still on me to try to do something with that. So like if I know someone maybe has maybe not a negative connotation towards me, but they have some sort of bias or whatever they think of me, and I'm like, okay, I think that's because of their insecurities. How can I help that? Like, how can I
Mm-hmm.
help that relationship? Because if they're not going to, you got to, right? Because
Yeah.
this is not everybody's doing this work, right? Not
Right.
everybody, and everybody's in different stages of this work. And I just always feel like it's some part of it is on me to try to navigate. Like some part of it, like in every relationship I have, I'm like, where is this person at? How can I meet them where they're at? How can I make this work? How can I be consistent, dependable, relatable for them? And have their respect, so that it
Yeah.
all goes into your influence. It's all part of your influence. Even if somebody's insecurities are affecting that, it affects your influence over them or with them.
Yeah. It's such uh a deep idea to look into and really think about. And I wish more could just, you just almost wish this was more mainstream. I think one of the biggest things, it's like I was saying, it's really hard to know what people think about you without having a conversation. But I also believe there are some cues you can take in your daily
Yeah.
life to kind of get an idea of what people think about you or don't. And, I think the first and the one that we all know is what happens when you walk in a room,
Yes.
and I think historically, I believe probably me and you could go back, and it's usually we always think about when the chief walks in, right? And just with the energy, you just could feel the energy get sucked out of a room and everybody gets quiet right away. Like that should tell you something. Right away, that's not a good thing. Like if you think that's a good thing, there's a problem there, and that's just the first cue of a simple cue. Like what happens when you walk in a room? Does the conversation continue? Does the energy leave? Does it get quiet? Are you welcomed in? Like all these things, like just take the little cues in that scenario. So ask what happens when you walk into the room, and can you answer that question?
Yeah, an interesting thing happened the other day for me is I'm the battalion chief of training, and so I pop down to the fire academy a lot because we do a regional academy, so I have to drive down to where it's held at. And I realized every time I showed up in this academy, we have very young recruits this year, and they would come right up to me like as soon as I would walk up, hey chief, and like they were telling me about their week and their day and what they liked or what was going on. And I was like, this is different because normally when the battalion chief of training shows up, they're like, oh, someone's in trouble. Like if she's here, because they have a captain down there with them. Well, I realized the captain had told them, hey guys, when the chief shows up, more than likely she's not here because someone's in trouble. She's here to check on you guys and she wants to know how you're doing. Go talk to her. And it really had helped
Hmm.
that kind of intimidation thing, which really I had never like approached them in an intimidating way, but like it was so helpful that they felt like they were like, all right, she's here to talk to us. And it's just this whole generation thing is so different. Like
Yeah.
before, like years and years ago, the badge made it a bit more intimidating. You had to break down that barrier, but they didn't
Right.
see that. They were like, she's here and she wants to know like how we're doing and what, and they were so excited just to come over and chit. Every time I show up, they come right over or they're like, hey chief, and I'm like, I love this. It's so much
Yeah.
better because I'm not here. Like, yes, do I go down, do I have to go sometimes because there is an issue? But they know that. They knew there,
Hmm.
when they know if I'm coming down there because of an issue and if I'm not. So but yeah, that really helped.
Yeah, and you just look at the overall impact of something like that, right? You have more comfortable recruits who are more willing, they're not making mistakes in training based on nerves and being intimidated. Like there's just so much positive that goes into something as simple as that, It's the dividends on what this stuff pays off are huge. We just have to put the work in. I think one of the other things, to really look at is how people approach you or avoid you within, again, the circles that you're in or your place of employment. Are you someone that they seek out? Do they just seek you out during certain situations? Are they afraid to approach you if you make a mistake, or do they simply avoid you? Do they just not try to have any conversation, or if they make a mistake, they try to hide it? All these things matter. Do they just seek you out when they have to, or do they seek you out because they want to? And if you examine closely in your organizations, I think this is something that you can start to visualize and actually see. But you have to maybe you just have this idea in your head, like when people approach you, how are they approaching you? Is it a good morning with a smile on their face, or no? And all these things are going to start telling you a story of who you really are, and what your leadership really is, and what your personality is, and what people really think about you. But you have to be willing to look and not, again, like we were talking about earlier, push that blame off onto them. So, that's just another thing. What happens when you walk in a room? What happens when people approach you or try to avoid you? Like, what are those things starting to tell you? Because it happens. Let's face it happens to all of us. Not every relationship is perfect, right? There are going to be adversarial relationships within every organization out there. Cool. We're not saying that that's not going to happen, but it's the why behind it and what we can learn from that as well.
Nope. There we go. I had lost you.
There we go.
You're back now.
Yeah. All right.
You were on a roll too, and I don't know what you ended with, so I'm going to take a stab at it and go with.
Go ahead. I don't know when I froze there.
Yeah, I don't either. So, but for me, like, we can wrap this up now, but I feel like the end of it all, at the end of the day, you don't get to define your leadership. Other people define it for you, right? You can do all the things and try all the things, but if it isn't landing, other people are defining it for you. So we leave you with, how are you making sure you are defining the leadership that you want to be? And what are people saying about it? Like, find out, make it your goal this week. Have a few conversations, with people you trust, or have some easier ones. Go to people first that are going to build you up and give you, positive and negative, but not all the negative. And then branch out, get a little braver, go to more people. Like, hey, especially people, your end goal, especially people that you have a strained relationship with, or you're not positively influencing them, go to those people, because that is the end goal of, hey, how am I showing up? Am I consistent? Am I approachable? What would you say to me if like, when I leave the room, and you could say anything to me, like, what would you say? What would you say about me or to me? Or like, what would you say to someone else about me? And man, get some thick skin.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be worth it.
Yeah, it's all about that. It's all about that growth. Just keep on growing,
It is. We believe in you guys. All right. Well, this was another impactful episode for me. I got some conversations to have. I definitely can.
Yeah, right.
I would love to have some conversations with. So, all right. Well, until next time, HC Leadership Podcast listeners, thank you.
We'll see you.